This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. The holidays are over, the decorations are down, and suddenly everything feels a little empty. It's normal to feel the winter blues after the holiday excitement. January, February, and March are by far my least favorite months of the year. It's cold and dark, and I have to get some extra vitamin D on board. I also need to keep my regular scheduled appointments with my therapist. So if you're feeling that post-holiday funk, I definitely suggest you checking out BetterHelp because maybe it's time to talk. You might also be one of those people like me who makes New Year's resolutions and you get super motivated. So maybe you need someone behind you to hold you accountable and come up with a plan to meet your goals. BetterHelp is super convenient, totally online. You have a therapist right at your fingertips whenever you need them. So head over to betterhelp.com/wifeofcrime1 to get 10% off your first month. That's betterhelp.com/wifeofcrime1 for 10% off your first month. Okay, everyone, close your eyes unless you're driving. And imagine for 1 second that you were just taken. And Liam Neeson isn't your dad. So you're taken by a stranger. And you're driving down this long highway. I-45, the highway to hell. And on either side of the highway is a desolate wasteland of nothing for miles and miles and miles. You turn off the highway onto an access road. And you drive out to the middle of nowhere. You can scream as loud as you can and no one will hear you. What I just described is the last moments of 30 girls and women under the age of 30 in Texas. Today I'm going to tell you the story about a case that is so fascinating and crazy. They say that everything's bigger in Texas. Well, even the dumping grounds for serial killers. These are the cases from the Texas killing fields.
What's up, peeps? Wife of Crime is back, and I'm going to listen to another story.
Hi, everyone. So first of all, before we get started with the story, we have to shout out the people who shared the podcast on Instagram this week.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Appreciate that.
2 people shared it on their Instagram, Carrie and Lily. So thank you so much for sharing it. We really appreciate it.
Word.
Yeah, so let's get into it. So this one's going to be pretty long and complex.
You say that a few times, and then a few of the episodes were like 35 minutes. So let's see where it goes.
True. Well, I decided to do this one because we have like a Podbean app, and it shows the statistics for which states are like our biggest listeners come from. So New York is obviously number 1.
Yeah, last month Texas was, there were a lot of listeners in Texas.
Yeah, so Texas was number 2.
Shout out to Texas.
So I decided to do a story out of Texas because, you know, it's cool that we have a lot of listeners in Texas, and it's really exciting. So when I was looking at true crime in Texas, there is one particular story that is just absolutely fascinating and really crazy. There is a place in Texas. It is about a 25-acre patch of land in South Texas, and it's called the Texas Killing Fields because since the 1970s, there have been 30 bodies found of women, well, not women, girls under the age of 30.
Oh, damn.
30 bodies.
30? Wow.
Yeah, in this 25-acre patch of land.
It's almost like Pelham Bay Park in the Bronx.
Exactly, yeah. But it's all women under the age of 30. Well, 30 and under.
Do new bodies keep popping up there?
There hasn't really been a lot of activity since 2006. But from 1970 to 2006, 30 bodies, which is nuts.
That's a lot. I wonder if it's the same person.
Well, I'm going to tell you the story. A lot of the activity happened in the 70s, from 1970 to 1978. And they think it was one single serial killer. And now there have been, he's admitted to some things or whatever. I'll tell you the rest of it as I go. But even in the 80s and 90s, there have been multiple cases of these young girls. So
I don't know why police broadcast like they found the field with all these bodies. They should just like stay shut and wait there for them.
Well, it's been thought that there's multiple serial killers that use this place.
It might be like a band of serial killers. What if it's like a group?
Well, it's been over the last 30 years, over a 30-year span. So they think multiple serial killers have used this place to dispose of bodies. It's a very desolate area.
Do you think they coordinated together? Like, hey, this is our dumping ground, or like it just happened to be?
No, I don't think it coordinated it at all.
Like, hey, man, this is where we're, the union of serial killers. We decided, our delegate negotiated. This is where we dump.
No, I don't think so. I just think that it's, serial killers are very opportunistic. This is an area that, like I said, is desolate and empty and full of places to hide a body that no one, people don't go there. So
okay,
it's very interesting. Okay. So the stretch of highway of Interstate 45, and this highway links Houston and Galveston, Texas. And it has been nicknamed the Highway to Hell because along this highway is a 25-acre patch of desolate land where 30 bodies of women ages 12 to 30 have been discovered since the early 70s. This patch of land in South Texas has acquired the nickname the Killing Fields. So people in this area call it the Killing Fields.
I used to play in a football field. We would call it the House of Pain, if it's related.
That's funny. Its history is like literally something out of a horror movie.
And I used to kill people there all the time.
In football?
Yeah, not real killings.
Yeah, I would think so.
Yeah. Your boy was nice. Now my knee hurts.
Its history is something out of a horror movie. The area is rugged and remote. It's the perfect dumping ground for a serial killer to dump their bodies. It's desolate, dark, and flat. There's a lot of wooded areas in this 25-acre land, and there's a lot of reservoirs. You know what a reservoir is?
Water.
Yeah, but it's like where
you get your water, right?
It's like a hole in the ground that's man-made so that the water, when it rains, water can run off into something.
Okay.
So there's a lot of reservoirs. There's like swampy areas, and it's very easy to get lost there. So imagine, you're abducted and taken there in the middle of the night. It's dark, empty. There you can scream, but there's nobody for miles.
How big is the field?
Well, it's 25 acres, so it's not really a field. They call it the Killing Fields, but it's a very large piece of land.
I forgot how many acres in a mile. I did that in one episode.
You did, yeah, in that episode with Elizabeth Shove, but I don't remember either. But just know that 25 acres is pretty large.
All right.
So the Killing Field spans over multiple counties and different jurisdictions, police jurisdictions, which is a very key part of this story, that there are a few police departments that the area covers, and it caused a lot of problems for the victims.
All the police, all the precincts or whatever they're called over there, they're all doing a shit job because they didn't find it. So if they're like fighting, this is your jurisdiction or mine, or you're all doing a shit job. Why take ownership of that? How about you work together, you dummies? Yeah,
that's been a problem, but especially in the 70s, it was a big problem with police not working together to try to solve crimes. Like different jurisdictions, they would be very weird about other jurisdictions coming in and taking over their cases. It was so stupid.
It's like the movies when the feds come, they're like, this is my territory now.
Yeah.
Isn't it like in Lethal Weapon or something?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that's just how it is.
That's so stupid. What's wrong with them?
I don't know.
How do they expect people to like them if they don't like each other?
Yeah, I know. I don't know.
Idiots.
So I got a lot of my information from an interview that I listened to with a lady named Catherine Cassie, and she wrote a book called Deliver Us, and she does like a really in-depth account of this story of all these murders.
You know what?
And
I just thought of something. It's really weird. We're doing the podcast now, and I don't have a drink.
Yeah, because it's the middle of the day.
All right, keep talking. I'm going to get a drink.
Okay.
I'll be right back. Right here.
All right. Well, anyway, I got my information from Catherine Cassie's Deliver Us. She wrote a book called Deliver Us, and then there's an interview with her.
I'm back.
And then there's also A&E did a special called The 11, which is about 11 girls that are discovered in the 70s. And then there's a movie called Texas Killing Fields, which is loosely based on this. But I watched that movie last night.
I fell asleep while she was watching it, but I came in like towards the end anyway, so I don't know anything about that.
Yeah.
Was it good?
It was good. It was pretty good, but it was like loosely based on it. But it was decent.
I mean, the movie can't really be much about it if they didn't solve the case. It could just be like a empty field.
Well, some of the cases have been linked to a particular serial killer. All right, so let me get into the actual
I could profile him.
crimes. I don't know. We're not going to really talk about him. This episode, we're going to talk more about the victims because
right.
the circumstances that surrounded their abductions and murders were pretty nuts. Like, these girls are all teenage girls that just disappeared, and it's interesting.
I'm going to let you talk before I have more questions because you're probably going to answer them later anyway.
Probably. Okay, so let's talk about the murders. So the first known abduction and murder was a young girl named Colette Wilson. She was a 13-year-old girl from Galveston, Texas, and she stayed after school for band practice. She did this all the time. Her band practice was after school. And on June 17th, 1971, her band teacher drove her to a bus stop. And this bus stop was like kind of in between the school and her house. So the deal was the band teacher would drive her to the bus stop and her mom would pick her up from the bus stop. That's where they would meet.
Like a cheese bus.
No, like a bus stop, like a regular bus stop.
Where you got to pay to get on?
Yes, but it doesn't matter. She's not getting on the bus. She just goes to this bus stop and her mom picks her up from there because it's halfway between the school and her house.
All right.
So her band teacher dropped her off at this bus stop. Her mom told her, I'm on my way, told her before school, I'm going to come pick you up from the bus stop, but if I'm 10 minutes late, because I have other things to do, walk to your friend's house from the bus stop.
Was it far?
Not too far. No, it was only a matter of a few blocks.
Oh.
So she is waiting at the bus stop, and her mother gets there 6 minutes late. And Colette is nowhere to be found.
This is why you should never be late. I hate when people are late. It's disrespectful, and now it also can get you killed.
Well, you have to remember that this is 1971, okay? You're on a busy public road. No one expects this girl to just get
Maybe that's the best place to abduct people is where they don't expect it.
Well, she's done this many times. This has been like a routine for them. She's one of 10 children, so her mom has a lot of kids to keep up with. So her mom was 6 minutes late, and Colette wasn't there. So her mom automatically assumes, she doesn't think worst case scenario. She just assumes, she probably walked to her friend's house.
Word, it's only 6 minutes.
It's literally 6 minutes. So she drives over to her friend's house, and Colette's not at her friend's. And then her mom starts to get really worried. One thing her mom did say is she remembers seeing a car parked across the street. But at the time, she didn't think anything of it.
It's a busy road. Why wouldn't there be a car parked there?
She didn't think anything of it. And then when she drove back from her friend's house back to the bus stop, that car was gone. And she doesn't remember she didn't pay attention to it. She just thought it was no big deal. But now, for the rest of her life, she wonders if her daughter was in that car. So they went to law enforcement that evening, her and her husband, to report their daughter missing. But law enforcement, they just treated her like a runaway. She's 13 years old, and back then they treat anyone, over the age of 12 as a runaway. So police didn't even start looking for her for a whole day after. And she was never seen alive again. The family, they did their own search. The family did their own search.
but police really didn't do a thorough search. Her remains would be found 5 months later, okay? 40 miles from where she was last seen. She was found with a gunshot wound to the head. Damn. So, now, 4 weeks after Colette disappeared, July 12th, 1971, a group of construction workers were doing work on a bridge called Pelican Island Bridge. And this is a bridge that connects Pelican Island to Galveston, Texas. And they see something floating in the distance. And one of them realizes, oh my God, this is a body. As the body gets closer to them, they realize that this is a young girl. And one of the men recognizes her. Her name is Brenda Jones, and she's a 14-year-old girl from Galveston. Her and her family lived in project housing on the island, and she would take the bus home from school every day. And somewhere between getting off the bus and walking to her apartment, Brenda was abducted. Brenda was black and Colette was white, and although their bodies were discovered in a similar area, and they were both teenage girls abducted in broad daylight, and both found with gunshot wounds to the head, since they're in different jurisdictions, no one connected these crimes. And they disappeared 4 weeks apart from each other. But at this point, when Brenda's body is found, Colette's body is still not found yet.
Oh, so they only have one person. So even if they can't connect 2 bodies if there's only one body found right now.
No, but they can connect a missing girl, and then another girl gets abducted.
I don't know.
And her body is found.
Well, once you find the bodies, then you can connect them if they were killed the same way.
That's true.
Or similar, but like if she's missing and you know what I mean. I don't got to keep going on.
No, I know what you mean, but
I'm right.
They did, but they didn't connect it, and they didn't connect it even after Colette's body was found. They never connected it because they're in separate jurisdictions.
So basically, what I'm learning from this is if I'm going to commit a crime, do it in different jurisdictions because they'll never connect.
Well, I don't know if the NYPD is like that because I feel like I don't know how that works, but this is the 70s, and this is down in an area where there was hardly any crime in this area at the time. So a lot of these police departments, they're like these little tiny little police departments in Texas City and all these small towns. Some of them hadn't had a murder case in 30 plus years. So they were very inexperienced.
So my tip of the day, if you want to commit a crime, do it in different areas because they won't connect it because they're dumb. Even with the internet. It's so small of a world. But don't commit a crime where you hurt nobody.
Okay.
Just do dumb stuff.
So
like hit someone with an egg or something. That's all right.
All right. So, what was I saying? Oh, yeah. So, even though they were both abducted in broad daylight, and then eventually both bodies were found to have gunshot wounds to the head, they were from different towns, and so no one connected their crimes. And it wasn't until years later and multiple girls and women were found murdered that they realized that there was a connection and possibly one killer. And again, same with Brenda and Colette, police dismissed this as a runaway case.
So they're thinking,
didn't put any effort into it.
They're thinking girls are just running away and getting shot in the head.
Well, yeah, they're just thinking that girls are running away, not that there's actually someone out there abducting them. So Colette's body is still missing, but the family and friends are out searching even though police aren't. And now this is pretty crazy. Of all the missing girls and missing and murdered girls, there are 3 pairs that go missing, which I find nuts because it's really hard to abduct 2 girls over just one.
3 pairs, that's 3 buy one get one frees.
Don't say that.
Well,
I hate when you say that.
They did 2 for 1.
I know, but I hate when you say that. It's not funny. 3 pairs of girls.
No, it's sad.
It's sad.
But if you do one and you have another...
It's not funny. It's not.
I know it's not funny.
So 3 pairs of girls go missing over, throughout the 70s.
Wait, are they friends and they take 2 at once?
Yes, they're best friends. All 3 of these pairs were best friends.
Oh, so they're like walking in the street maybe and then they take them both?
Yes.
Ed Kemper originated that joint.
Well, this was
That's
before
our first episode.
Ed Kemper. This was this is before Ed Kemper.
Oh, so he might have got this from them.
So he didn't know about this at the time. So 3 pairs of girls go missing. The first pair was Sharon Shaw and Renee Johnson. They were best friends, and they were both 14 years old. That summer in 1971, they hung out every day, and they would camp out on the beach. They would go to concerts. They were really enjoying their summer. August 4th, 1971, a friend of theirs dropped them off at the beach, and they made plans to meet up with this friend later. So they told her, come back and pick us up at 5 p.m. So the friend came back to pick them up at 5, but they were never seen again. Like before, police dismissed them as runaways.
It sucks being a girl.
Right? It does. It's scary.
Yeah, because I feel like girls are the most ones killed by the serial killers.
Because like, generally we're more vulnerable.
This is why you need to carry pepper spray at all times and not in the bottom of your fancy purse. Because you're like, hold on, don't abduct me. Let me dig through this purse underneath my mascara and find it. You need to keep that shit in your pocket, and you spray the shit out of them and scream.
True. But this is the 70s, and things just, people they didn't know about stuff like this.
Well, this is the
then.
2000s, so don't get abducted and keep that pepper spray in your pocket. It's very small.
So the families were pushing really hard for the police to search, but because they dismissed them as runaways, the police really didn't put a lot of effort into searching for these girls.
So they don't care about runaways.
No, they just say, oh, they must have run away. You know, they're teenagers. They probably ran off to California or something like that. So the girls didn't.
My mom did that.
That's true. Your mom did do that.
My mom ran away at 15, ended up in California and Alaska and all that. And she came back to New York when she was 18, pregnant with me.
Exactly.
I was a runaway baby.
So back then, I guess they just assumed that these girls were runaways, and they didn't put a lot of effort into searching for them. But the families said to the police, they were like, they didn't take anything with them. If they ran away, wouldn't they take some clothes? Wouldn't they take any type of anything with them? I mean,
True.
all they had they were at the beach that day. All they had were swimsuits on and like some shorts and sandals. Like, they had nothing else. So the families were very adamant, but the police really didn't put any effort into it, and they were never seen again. Colette's body, along with the 5th victim, named Gloria Ann Gonzalez, which was a 19-year-old grocery store bookkeeper, she went missing on October 17th, 1971, outside of her apartment. So Gloria and Colette was the first victim I told you about, right? Their remains were found in a reservoir, which is like a retention pond in the killing fields. The bodies.
So they weren't buried; they were just like floating.
Yeah, they weren't. None of these victims' bodies were buried.
Oh, so they don't even really have to search for the bodies; they just pop up eventually.
Well, they pop up, but like I said before, this is a desolate area where no one goes. It's not like they just people
That's
are
a good
out
word.
walking around.
Desolate. I got to use that.
Okay, it's not like people are out walking around or anything. Like this is an area where nobody goes.
Very desolate.
Especially back then. It wasn't built up. Nowadays, it's gotten a little more built up and developed around that area. So I think that's another reason why you haven't really had a lot of victims pop up since 2006, because there's more stuff around that area now.
And you can't build a house where all those bodies were found, because then it'll be haunted. So they can't use that area.
You don't even believe in hauntings. Shut up.
But I watch movies. And in the movie, you shouldn't build a house there.
Poltergeist?
Yeah. Like what is it called? Pet Cemetery.
Yeah, like Pet Cemetery.
You never watched that? Watch that. That's creepy.
Yeah, it's a good one. So now we have the bodies of Gloria, the 19-year-old grocery store bookkeeper who disappeared outside of her apartment, and Colette Wilson, the first victim I told you about. Now their bodies have been discovered in this retention pond in the killing fields. So the bodies of Renee Johnson and Sharon Shaw, which is the first pair that went missing, are not found until the next year. So their families don't know what happened to them for an entire year.
Well, you kind of do. If someone's missing that long, you don't.
I know,
you
but
don't
they
want to
don't have
admit
closure.
but you kind of know that they're not alive.
I know.
Especially if you're young. If you're old and you went missing, then maybe you just dipped out because life was getting annoying.
Yeah.
Well, not if you're a woman. If you're a woman and you're missing, you're probably dead. Sorry, but
That's sad. So they their remains were discovered in the killing fields. So one of their remains was discovered fully intact. At this point, their bodies have decomposed. It's just bones, you know. But then the other one, it was a bunch of bones scattered around. And then they ID'd it, I think, using dental records. One interesting thing is in the area, the 25 acres. So, like I said before,
You know what? I need to go to the dentist. I never go. So if they find my teeth, they won't even know it's me. There's no records, really.
Yeah, you should go to the dentist just for your regular oral hygiene.
So my dead body could be identified, but I'm not going to die.
They'd
like
use
that.
DNA now, Russ.
Oh, well,
They don't really use dental records anymore. They use DNA.
All right, never mind. Don't go to the dentist then.
So one interesting thing, like I said, is there's a lot of swamps and reservoirs and retention ponds in this area. But this means that because all these bodies have been discovered in water, that the killer was very calculated. Because when you dump a body in water, most of the physical evidence is gone, especially back then when they had, you know, less ability to use DNA and all that. We didn't have that technology. Dumping a body in water erased most of the physical evidence. Any fingerprints, anything like that.
Wow, I didn't know that.
So this makes it seem like the killer was very calculated since all the bodies were found in water.
Or he was lazy and didn't feel like burying them.
No, I think I don't.
Because burying's a lot of physical labor. You could just like dump someone in water, bloop.
Yeah, maybe, but I think it was because they didn't want any physical evidence found.
Sometimes I think we give some of these killers too much credit. They're probably just dummies that are panicking
Maybe they
and
are
like
dummies. I mean, I don't know. So, like I said, the police were just not prepared to deal with this. A lot of these little tiny police departments didn't have any murders happen in 30 plus years. So they didn't even know where to begin investigating these crimes. Okay, so all those bodies, now we're only into 1973. So it's been 2 years and 5 bodies of teenage girls have been discovered in this area, okay?
damn.
Police arrest a man and charge him with the murders of the first pair, Sharon Shaw and Renee Johnson. And his name is Michael Lloyd Self. And he's a registered sex offender because he was a peeping Tom. He was slow with a low IQ. He was a gas station attendant and just an overall slow guy. But police were now under like massive pressure from the community to, you know, get somebody and convict them for some of these crimes. So they brought Self in and they interrogated him for a few hours. And surprise, surprise, he falsely confessed to the crime. There was a police chief at the time, and his name was Don Morris. Apparently, he was a giant bully and just a huge jerk. He also was a very crooked and corrupt cop. He used to, you know, do a lot of money things on the side and just stuff with drugs. And apparently, Don Morris got this guy, Michael Lloyd Self, to confess to this crime by playing Russian roulette with him.
What?
He emptied out his...
Wait, fuck it, I did it, stop.
Exactly. He emptied out his gun, put one bullet in it, and held the gun to his head. And told him, you need to... Like, did you do it? You know, and coerced him into confessing. But during the confession, none of the details matched the actual crime. So these girls were shot in the head, and Michael Lloyd Self said that he hit them in the head with a Coke bottle. There was no blunt force trauma.
I don't know if you
could
could kill someone with a Coke bottle.
Exactly. He just didn't even know the details of the case.
Maybe a Pepsi bottle.
The girls' bodies
those are
were
aluminum.
found with all their clothing on them, but Michael Lloyd Self said that he stripped them naked. So, like, none of it was consistent with the actual crime. And it was definitely a false confession. His defense lawyers tried to prove that, but the community was in such an uproar that regardless, he was sentenced to life in prison.
It's crazy. People just want convictions. They don't care, it seems like, if they get the right person or not.
I know. And it's crazy that the only evidence against him was his confession, which I understand from the outside. And especially now, you know, now we understand how false confessions work. But back in the day, you know, They didn't understand that someone would falsely confess of a crime or understand the circumstances behind that.
False confessions are such a weird thing. Like
They are a weird
I
thing.
can't imagine saying I did it to something I didn't do. So that's what I guess if you're dumb, I don't know.
Well, if you're a vulnerable person who was either slow or a child or a teenager and you have a gun being held to your head with one bullet in it playing Russian roulette, then you might confess to a crime that you didn't commit just to get out of the situation.
True.
And that's what happened. So he was convicted and sentenced to life in prison. He maintained his innocence and he wrote multiple appeals requesting a new trial. They were always denied. And then in 1980, a man walked into a police station and confessed to the murder. He had actual accurate details, but the case was already closed to the police. So they were like, the case is closed. We're not really pursuing this.
So they're not really trying to stop crime or find the person. They're just trying to, like, you know, it reminds me of like someone at work that does a half-ass job. Like if you got to sweep the floor or something, you like kind of do it. Like, all right, they said I did it. That's enough.
Yeah, I think they were just trying to clear their books and close cases, and that's it.
That's some lazy shit.
Yeah. So I believe personally, based on the evidence, that Michael Lloyd Self was innocent. But because also another thing is after he was arrested and put in jail, the killings continued. We're only up to 5 bodies, and from 1971 to 1978, there were 11 bodies. He's in jail at this point. We still have 6 more bodies to be discovered. He didn't do all of that while he's in jail, so the killings continued.
Some lazy police work.
So on January 3rd, 1973, Kimberly Ray Pitchford, she's a 16-year-old. She walks outside of her driver's ed class and completely disappears. She was supposed to call her mom and tell her mom to come pick her up. Her mom never got the phone call, so her mom drove to the driver's ed class. She was nowhere to be found. Her body was also found in water. Another pair of girls, Maria Johnson and Debbie Ackerman, they were 2 15-year-old girls. They were last seen getting into a white van in 1973. Their bodies were later found in a bayou in the killing fields of Texas City. So now we have 8 girls disappeared between 1971 and 1973, and their bodies discovered in the killing fields. The third pair of girls, Brooks Bracewell and her best friend Georgia Gear, they were 12 and 14 years old, and they skipped school one day. So when they skipped school, they were kind of running around town. People saw them in a convenience store at one point.
They were bold, huh? When I skipped school, we used to hide.
Yeah, they didn't hide. They were running around town.
We went and hid where the Trump's golf course is now, where Son of Sam and all them bodies was found and stuff.
Yeah, well, they didn't. They were pretty bold.
Yo, I could have found him. Well, wait, I was too old for that.
Yeah, you were too old.
Never mind.
I don't even understand what goes on in your brain sometimes.
Me neither. I was like, wait a minute, things could have been going on there. But there probably was, but not from him.
No, not from him. He was in jail at that point. You weren't even alive yet when he went to jail. So, where was I? Oh, yeah. So, Brooks Bracewell and her best friend Georgia Gear, 12 and 14 years old, skipped school, and people saw them around town. They saw them in a convenience store at one point. Another time they saw them playing football with a group of kids. And then they disappear. And this is September 6, 1974. Despite all these other murders, they were dismissed as runaways again. And the Galveston County Sheriff's deputy even wrote in his report, "I'm not wasting my time on a couple of runaways." That's an exact quote from his report. The police department didn't follow up with the families until December. And over 2 months after the disappearance, these families just worked as hard as they could to search. They had families, friends, everybody out every day searching. The police had nothing to do with these searches. Eventually, 7 years later, 7 years later, their bones were found in a ditch in Alvin, Texas, in the killing fields.
That's crazy.
Finally, that disappearance was switched from a runaway to a homicide.
But now it's 7 years later, and the evidence is gone. The person might have moved. They might be locked up.
Exactly.
Like,
so it's a homicide case, but it went cold because what are they going to go on? They have a bunch of bones. That's it.
There's some dumb people out there.
So now, Suzanne Bowers, this is Memorial Weekend, 1977. 12-year-old girl. She was supposed to meet her friend at the beach. She was at her grandparents' house. And she asked her grandfather if he could give her a ride to the beach to meet her friend. And her grandfather was like, nah, why don't you just ride your bike? Because she rode her bike to the beach all the time. So her grandfather was like, no, just ride your bike to the beach. Well, that was a huge mistake. She walked home, which her house was 3 blocks away from her grandparents' house. She walked home to get her bike and her bathing suit and never made it home. So in a 3-block little span of space, 3-block space, she got abducted.
You know, being that it happens in such a small space and a small amount of time, it seems like the person already knew that these were the victims he was going to get and was waiting for the opportunity. Because it isn't like they were just out for a long time. Once they were alone for a very short period of time, scooped them up.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if he necessarily followed them.
But I think it
or
seems...
just saw a girl by herself and boom, got her.
But it seems to always happen in like they have a 6-minute span. The mom was 6 minutes late. He was waiting for that one. Soon as that person is alone, scoops them up.
It's scary, right? It's so scary.
I'm just putting my expertise profiling on it.
It happened in a matter of minutes, which is nuts.
Yeah.
So
pepper spray.
She never made it home to get her bike or her bathing suit, and she was never seen again. Police said she must have run away. Her grandmother told the Galveston newspaper Suzanne would never run away. She was saving all of her money to go to a school field trip, and all the money was still in her piggy bank. If she would have run away, she would have taken her money.
And poor kids with piggy banks getting kidnapped.
Right? I know. The fact that she even has a piggy bank. She's 12 years old.
Oh, my goodness. See, having kids is scary. I can't have kids. They freaking... You got to keep an eye on them like...
All the
you can't
time.
let them out your sight.
I know. Her remains were eventually found in the killing fields. Now, a serial killer, he's a pretty well-known serial killer. His name is Henry Lee Lucas, and he was a total nut job. He confessed to like hundreds of killings from all over the country. And a lot of people don't believe that he killed that many people. They believe that he was a serial killer, but they don't believe that he killed that many. They think that he just confessed to these murders because he kept getting stuff from police. Like whenever he would confess to another one, they'd give him cigarettes.
Well, I would do the same thing if I was in jail. I'm like, sure, I did it all. I'm here forever anyway.
So yeah, he was already in jail, and he confessed to the murder of Suzanne Bowers. But her best friend, Sarah, made it like her life's mission to find her friend's killer. And eventually Sarah grew up, and she wrote Henry Lee Lucas while he was in jail. She sent a picture of her friend Suzanne and said, "Did you kill this girl?" And this is years after he confessed to this crime. And Henry Lee Lucas wrote her back and said, "No, I didn't kill her. I just said it because the police were giving me cigarettes and food and stuff I wanted at the time. So I just said that I killed him." But they closed the case with this confession. So they never looked for her killer.
Some lazy people.
So this is now 11 women in the 1970s decade. Right? 11 girls. In the 90s, there is an inmate who confessed to the murders of these 11 girls. This inmate was named...
He wanted cigarettes too. Everybody wants cigarettes.
No. This is the one that I think did it. And a lot of people who have really searched in depth these crimes think that he did it. His name was Edward Bell. He sent letters to law enforcement confessing. He knew intimate details about the girls and about the killings, things that only the killer would know. Edward Bell was a very smart businessman. He was super successful. He had a master's degree. He had multiple businesses that he owned. He was actually a really successful guy, but he was also a convicted child molester. He was taken to Galveston Island to a rehab center for sex offenders in 1970, which is a year.
Wait, there's a rehab for sex offenders?
Yeah, it was like a rehabilitation for sex offenders.
They shouldn't rehabilitate them. They should lock them up and that's it. Suffer, bitch.
Well, yeah, no. So he was taken to this rehab.
When I'm president, I'm getting rid of rehabilitation for sex offenders. Once they're in, they're in.
Well,
And they could get
let him
sexually
go.
offended themselves in jail.
Well, I guess he served his time.
Vote for
I mean, I
Russ.
totally agree with you. I have no sympathy for anyone who molests a
So
child.
what do they do? Show them like people's naked parts and be like, don't touch it unless they say yes, or they're over 18.
I don't know, but he went to jail. He served his time for whatever crime he did, and then he went to this rehab thing in Galveston, Texas, in 1970, which is 1 year before all these murders started. So in 1978, he's convicted of murdering a man who caught him exposing himself to young girls. So he was with a group of girls showing his penis to them, and this man walked up and saw him doing it and like confronted him and told him to put it away. So
Put your pecker away.
Edward Bell grabbed a gun and shot him in the chest and killed him. in
Oh,
the street.
shit.
Yeah.
This is why I always mind my business.
Yeah, but you have a group of little girls, and some man is like walked over and just showed his stuff to them. Like, come on.
I understand you should probably stop them, but you also don't want to get shot.
That's true. Well, he shot him in the middle of the street. Okay. He then packed up all of his stuff.
His penis, he packed it up.
No,
left?
his belongings.
Oh, when he said packed up his stuff, it's like he put his penis
No,
away.
after he shot this guy, he ran. He packed up his belongings.
Did he pull up
and
his pants?
Yes.
Or was it like a trench coat and he like opened it and like jiggled and then closed
No,
it?
shut up. No. He packed up his belongings. You're so annoying. It's not funny. Imagine being a little girl and that happens. That happened to me when I was a little girl. I was decorating my mailbox for Christmas, and a random man pulls up in front. I'm only like, I don't know, my mom will remember. I think I'm like 14. I'm decorating my mailbox, and a random man pulls up. I stand up because I'm like, what is this car just pulling up next to me? I look over, and he's playing with it in front of me, staring at me. And he had a car seat in the back of the car, which made me even more scared because it means he had a baby.
Crazy. This dude's probably a serial killer in Maryland.
I made a police report.
Did you get the license plate?
No, I was scared to death. I ran in the house.
He could have killed your ass.
He could have done something. I was so scared. I ran in the house to my mom. We called the police and I put a police report. So anyway, it's very scary. So
he packed
up his belongings, sold a bunch of his stuff. Because, like, remember, I told you he was a successful businessman. He sold a bunch of his stuff. He had $140,000 after he sold everything, which back in, the 70s is a lot of money.
That's a lot of money now. Imagine then. That's probably like $500,000. I don't know.
He moved to Panama. So years later, there was an America's Most Wanted episode that came out. And he was recognized in Panama, and they caught him and brought him back to Texas. And now, to this day, he is spending the rest of his life in a Texas prison for the murder of this man. And then while he's in prison, he confesses to the 11. And there was an interview by a police station in Houston. And during the interview, he called the girls the 11 that went to heaven.
Ooh, he's trying to rhyme and shit, thinking he's clever.
How terrible is he's disgusting. I watched the interview. He's so gross.
Do you think he did it?
100% think he did it.
Maybe I'll watch the interview.
Now that's just the 70s. Okay? All that whole story I just told you was just the 70s.
That's a lot of information.
It was a lot of information.
Gotta take notes.
There's still 2 more decades full of murders that happened.
But if he went to jail,
that's why I said there's multiple serial killers. But the crazy part is that they're all women, and they're all women 30s and under.
Yo, ladies, carry that damn pepper spray.
So now
we might make a wife of crime pepper spray. We were thinking about that and do giveaways.
Yeah, we were thinking about that.
We got to figure it out.
That would be cool, though, to do a wife of crime giveaway of pepper spray.
Yeah, we're trying to keep our listeners alive because it's mostly women. Men don't really listen too much.
There's some guys that listen.
Well, shout out to Gus, Scorp, Chris.
Yeah.
2 guys I do know. The other guys, if you listen, say what up. So I'm not the only one here talking to a bunch of ladies, which isn't that bad because
All right, so that was just 1 decade. So now we're into the 80s. In 1982, a girl named Michelle Garvey, 15 years old, snuck out of her home in the middle of the night, and her body was found a month later. But it was never identified as being her. So
Why?
because they
She didn't go to the dentist.
because they didn't have the ability to identify her at the time.
Dental records.
They just found this body in the killing fields far away from where this girl was from. And this is really cool. In 2014, so there's a website called Web Sleuths, and it's a bunch of amateur sleuths, people who love crime and love investigating crimes, but they're amateurs. They're not like law enforcement. Yeah. So Web Sleuths is a site where people get on and they discuss all these cases. So there was a girl who was a web sleuth, and she called the Centers for Missing and Exploited Children, and she said, this girl, Michelle Garvey, and this unidentified body in the killing fields, they have all these similarities. I think you should test the DNA. I think it might be the same girl. So this girl went missing in 1982, but in 2014, they exhumed the body. Okay, the Centers for Missing and Exploited Children exhumed the body.
And listen to this lady?
They listened to her. They exhumed the body. They DNA tested it with Michelle's brother, and it was her. And the family finally found out where their daughter's remains.
You know who are probably the best true crime investigators? Stay-at-home moms.
Maybe.
Because they're probably like researching the internet all day. I feel like they're just like detectives taking care of little shitty things that shit in their pants. Shout out to your little shitty kids.
Oh, don't say that. It's not funny.
Solve them crimes.
Little kids are...
They're shitty. If you shit your pants... If I shit in my pants, what would I be?
No, but...
No, answer my question. What would I be if I shit my pants?
But if you
say it.
Shitty. But if you say... You can't say that kids are shitty.
They shit their pants.
Doesn't mean that they are... Okay, whatever.
What do they smell like?
I want to finish this story. We have...
Shit.
We have a little more information to go.
Sounds like she's rushing me because I'm talking.
No, I just
Welcome to Jess's podcast where Russ is in
don't
the background.
I just don't want the episode to go too long. So, in 1983, Sandra Ramber, 14 years old, was reported missing after her front door... Listen to this. Her front door was found open. Food was found in the oven, and she was never seen again. So they just assumed that someone just walked in her house, grabbed her while she was cooking, and took her.
I bet her door wasn't locked.
Probably
Lock
not.
the fucking doors. Everyone.
Her remains have not been identified ever. They've never been
found. And hide
found.
a couple weapons around your house. I do that too. I have a few weapons that no one know where it is. So if I was ever in a struggle, I got a couple spots.
Yeah.
Stay alive.
So her remains have never been found, but they assumed that she's linked to this slew of murders and abductions.
I don't think so. That one's different because the dude went in the house. They didn't do that before. That's very bold, unless they got bold all of a sudden.
True.
Because they were more opportunists finding you in the street than busting in a house. This is a little different.
Well, another one, Heidi Fye, she was last seen October 1983. She was a bartender leaving a convenience store after her shift, and her remains were discovered April 4th, 1984. A dog was running in the area, found a skull, brought it home.
Oh.
And it was her skull.
Oh, that's crazy.
Yep. Audrey Cook disappeared December 1985 and found in 1986. Shelley Sykes, last seen leaving her waitress job, May 1986 in Galveston. Her car was found the next day, stuck in the mud off of I-45 on an access road. There was blood all over the front seat, but her remains have never been found. Just the car with the blood.
Was it a crashed car?
No. It was just in a ditch, and there was blood in the front seat, and her car was wide open. Her remains have never been found, but this is in the killing fields off of I-45.
See, like something like that could have been the same person that did the break into the house and steal the person, because that's like a bold, crazy move. Mm-hmm. But the ones that are just like walking and he scoops them, it's a little different. That's like a little more passive.
I know. Suzanne Richardson, last seen leaving work at 6 a.m., October 1988, never seen again.
No. Oh, so did they find her in the killing field?
Yeah.
All these are killing fields.
Yeah, all the ones except the girl that I told you they came in her house and her remains were never found.
That's crazy.
So from 1991, that was the 80s. Now from 1991 to 2006, all these remains have been found in the killing fields. I'm not going to tell you their story. I'm just going to tell you their names. Donna Prudhomme, Lynette Bibbs, Tamara Fisher, Crystal Baker, Laura Smither, Jessica Kane, Todd Harriman, Sarah Trusty, Teresa Vargas, all in their 30s and younger, all disappeared out of nowhere and all found in the killing fields.
That's crazy.
So there's a few documentaries. Like I said, the documentary The 11 on A&E, they did it about the 11 girls found in, and that documentary specifically, their goal is to link these 11 girls to Edward Bell. Like the documentary is proving that he's the one that actually committed the crime.
But are they open to other ideas, or are they like the police? Once they think of the person that did it, they'll stop no matter what to convict this person, whether they're right or wrong.
Well, I think that they're proving he did it because, like I said, he confessed later in life, and he had all the details that no other person would know besides the killer.
Okay. I mean, but if he confessed, well, whatever. I don't know what to say.
I know, it's a confusing one. There have been no victim discoveries since 2006.
And what year did that guy get locked up? That would be interesting to look at.
Yeah, he got locked up in the late 70s after the crimes, after the 11 girls in the 70s. From 1971 to 1978 were the 11 girls. He was locked up in like the late 70s, early 80s. But then there were other crimes.
Maybe it's just like an empty place to dump bodies. I wonder, like, if you check a lot of empty fields, there's probably bodies there.
But what's crazy is they're all women and girls, all under the age of 30, and all abducted out of nowhere. Like, just, they are walking down the street, disappear, boom, never seen again.
So what I'm learning is, if you're a young girl, carry pepper spray. But if you're an old lady, you good.
Yeah, I guess I'm getting to the age now where I'm good. I'm 34, I'm getting old, no one wants to deal with me.
You're on the cusp of dead. Like, if a serial killer sees you, like, is she too old? And then you start nagging, he'd be like, nah, on to the next one.
So anyway, that's the story of the Texas killing fields. There's so much more information. Like, I barely touched it. Honestly, barely touched it in the last 48 minutes. But if you go on and research more, it's honestly overwhelming, the amount of information out there about it. There's a lot of conflicting stories. There's been so many articles written about it. I'm interested if any of the Texas listeners kind of live near that area or...
Yeah, tell us on Wife of Crime Pod on Instagram.
Yeah, I'm curious if you guys
Jess
are
checks
familiar.
that pretty often. I don't really check Wife of Crime Pod, but I do jump on there and see who the people are, and I'll like a post and stuff.
Yeah, so I'm interested to hear if you guys know any other info that I don't know, but... Like I said, lots of info.
It's so many victims that some of our Texas listeners might like know someone. If there's 30 people, it's like, you know, there's, what is it, like the degrees of separation, like Kevin Bacon type stuff. Like someone knows someone.
Yeah.
Even though Texas is huge.
Texas is huge. And this little stretch of area, it's a 50-mile stretch of highway. And the land is 25 acres where the killing fields are. But a lot of these victims are from all over Texas. They're not from that direct area. They are from all over Texas, but their bodies were brought there to be dumped.
It was an approved dumping ground of serial killers.
Exactly. How crazy is that?
That's nuts.
So that's it. That's this week's episode.
All right, guys. So
hope you guys liked it.
Hope you guys liked it. Still, like and share the podcast. It helps a lot. And rate it 5 stars all the time.
And we'll give you a shout out if you share.
Yeah, and we're going to do some merch giveaways soon. We just got to figure out where to get it and stuff.
And we're going to figure out what to do.
Yeah, maybe like some t-shirts or buttons and stuff. I'm not trying to sell anything right now. We'll just give it away. We'll figure it out.
Yeah, we'll do giveaways. Okay. Hope you guys have a good week. See you later.
Peace.